if the psychology becomes entrenched that any increase in wages must start with a 5, and that, of course, is what happened in the 70s, we're in trouble. I mean, we've had, as you said, strikes already in Australia of workers seeking wage increases, in particular, I guess, nurses who've borne a tremendous burden during the pandemic. Where is the structure in place? I mean, Bob Hawke and Bill Kelty way back then had that summit and they brought everyone together. Do we need a summit, or are we wasting their time on these talk fests? I mean, there's got to be some discussion about this, hasn't there?
There has to be, and the government is going to try to bring employers, employees and a few others and government together in September and October to discuss these issues. 2 days probably. It won't solve all of the problems, but at least we'll start to talk about them and at least recognise that there are these structural problems within the economy. If we get into this endless chase of wages chasing inflation, it just leads to more interest rates, more inflation, bigger wage claims. We've been to this dance before, Alan, and we know it ends badly. So we've got to try to break the cycle very early, and that's what we've got to do. We just must do it for our own economic well-being.
To my viewers, let me just say to my viewers, this man knows this scene backwards. So let me ask you this question. Is there a figure in your head, Innes, say 3.5% has been talked about, in wages growth that would be sustainable?
Well, 3.5 is around about where we could make it work. So we put forward a claim to the minimum wage, which took into account the 0.5% superannuation, the pension costs that employers have to pay, other government supports. That took it to about 4.3% if you add all of that together, including the 0.5. So somewhere in the 3s, 3.5 to high 3s is about where it could sustainably end up at the moment. The problem is once you lock that in, and the Reserve Bank will work desperately hard to get inflation back to 2 to 3%, you are still stuck with paying those wages if you're an employer. And that's the big concern that we have, that they are costs that can't be moved on.
Yes, indeed.
And that's why those wage increases of 6, 7, 8% are just not sustainable in the long run.
So just before you go, do you anticipate right now as we speak oversized pay claims becoming entrenched in future negotiations, which would fuel a wage-driven massive inflationary spiral? How then do you best address that?
Well, Alan, we've always run a bit behind the Northern Hemisphere in everything really to do with COVID and COVID reaction when it comes to the economy and how the economy is running. Inflation came out first in America, for instance, and Europe, and then it emerged here. It was coming for a long time. In the UK, you are seeing strikes now for 11% wage claims.
Yes.
I fear that's what we're going to have in the months to come unless we can break the cycle and change the psychology. And that's really what our task is.
Absolutely.
We were working in a low inflation environment for a long time. We're now in a high inflation environment. It's like some in the union movement have got collective amnesia and forget COVID ever happened. And it had a huge impact on business that is still recovering. We can never forget that. Our cities are sort of empty shells. We don't, if we were to really put pressure on businesses, you'll see a lot of them fold.